gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's March the 24th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And Matt, the news of the day is the news of what's coming tonight. I'm here at T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. It's the calm before the storm here as Miami gets ready to face off against Houston, who most people who are college basketball pundits think is the top team in the country this year. Better than Alabama, better than many of the other teams that remain in the Sweet 16. I'm not as convinced, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. I think the Miami Hurricanes have a chance to win this game tonight. They're going to have to obviously play well. They're going to have to execute the game plan. But I like what I've been hearing this week about the strategy that they are going to bring into this game. And I think they're going to give Houston fits. Let's start with your thoughts. Obviously, a huge moment, back-to-back Sweet 16 berths for Miami, and a huge, huge night tonight for Jim Larrañaga and the program in general. What are you expecting?
How did you get the green screen to look like you're actually at the arena? That's amazing. That's remarkable.
Isn't it amazing? I mean,
Yeah.
I even got the animation, the Sweet 16 animation going on.
I first of all, I know you're not there because I'm actually there, and this is my green screen. So I don't see you here. I'm looking around the arena. I don't see you anywhere. But no, so, look, Miami's going to lose. In 2024, they're not going to lose this game. Let's go. Very exciting. I love days like this because you get two games. You got the afternoon women's game. You got the night men's game. It's going to be awesome. Whether they win or lose, they've already won. I mean, you have both programs out of four programs in the whole country. In the Sweet 16, Miami fans should just be happy. This is like, I can't equate it to football because I was going to say it's like facing Clemson in the ACC championship, but then you lose 50-0. So it's not like that. But I expect this to be a highly competitive game. There's a story on the website this morning, along with, you wrote a great column, but along with that, I spoke to Dick Vitale, a big fan of his, and he predicted Miami to the Elite Eight. And, I called him, we talked for a little bit. He says, such a nice guy. And I said to him, are you sticking by your prediction that Miami is going to beat Houston and go to the Elite Eight? And he goes, he starts stammering. And then he says, well, I guess since I already said it, I'll just stick with Miami then. And so anyway, I actually went up to Jim Larrañaga because Miami had a practice here before they left on Wednesday. I talked to Dick Vitale the night before. And so I said to Jim Larrañaga, I said, I got to tell you something. I said, I spoke to Dick Vitale, who I know you're friendly with. And I said, first of all, he calls you Jimmy, which I don't understand why. And then Larrañaga laughs and he says, well, when I grew up, when I was little, they called me Jim. When I was in high school, they called me Larry for Larrañaga. When I was in college, they called me Jimmy, which is when he met Dick Vitale. He says, now they call me Coach L because no one can pronounce his last name. And so I told him what Dick Vitale, basically said, and how he's essentially saying, hedging on his Elite Eight prediction now that Houston's there also, and he knows how good Houston is. And, Jimmy, Larry, Jim, Coach L did not seem surprised that his friend Dick Vitale was wavering. And he told me a great story about Dick Vitale. Should I tell this Dick Vitale story? I mean, it's a great story, but it's a little long and people don't, look, if you don't want to hear about basketball on the show, then just don't tune in today.
If you don't want to hear about basketball today, there's something wrong with you.
Today's a basketball day. We'll talk about football later in the show because they practice in full pads.
Yeah, we absolutely will.
Today, Miami's a basketball school. We're not going to be worrying about football until tomorrow when every recruit that is meaningful is visiting again. But this is basketball. So I will tell the story. So look, Jim Larrañaga is such a great guy, and I've known him obviously for a long time. And so he says to me, do you know Dick Vitale's history? I said, well, I know before, he was a legendary announcer. He was a coach. And so Jim, Jimmy, Larry, Coach L shared with me a story about how Dick Vitale got started in his coaching career. And at one point he had a top recruit. he was going to get hired by the school that the kid went to, the recruit went to, sort of like, because the kid was sort of attached to Dick Vitale, loved Dick Vitale. Why wouldn't you love Dick Vitale? But then the player turned out to be not so great, his senior year of high school, and wound up, the whole thing fell apart. So anyway, Dick Vitale winds up eventually as an assistant coach at Rutgers. This is now Larry, Coach L, Jimmy telling me the story. He says Dick Vitale decides, even though Rutgers at that point was not a good program, he decides he's going to try to go after the top recruit in the country, some of the top recruits in the country. And so he goes to this kid's game, a high school game, and this is, Jim says that, Dean Smith is there, like every top guy, coach in the head coach in the country is there. And there's Dick Vitale, an assistant coach at lowly Rutgers, sitting in the stands. The game ends. You're allowed, at that point in time, 1974 or whatever it was, 75, you're allowed to talk for 5 minutes to, or maybe it was a little earlier than that, but you're allowed to talk for 5 minutes after the game per coach with the player. And so the player, his name was actually Phil Sellers. The player is sitting on a bench. The coaches will come up to him, and according to Jim, this is Dick telling Jim the story, Jim telling me the story. The kid would like hold out his hand, like do the dead fish, wouldn't even look at coaches, look just slumped over, like totally uninterested in talking to any of these legendary coaches. So Dick Vitale, of course, is last in line because he's a nobody. So it's finally his turn to talk to the kid, and he gets up to the kid and he says, "Young man," he says, "this is not how you behave." He starts berating the kid. You look your coaches in the eye. You stand up when you're talking to your coaches. You shake their hand like a man. And he shows him how to shake his hand like a man. And he berates him for 5 minutes and then walks away. And as he's walking away, this woman comes up to Dick Vitale and says, I just want to thank you. She said, "You're the first person that has talked to my son and told him how to act like a real man and how you're supposed to behave." She says, "My son will be going to your school." And then she says to him, she says, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm Dick Vitale. I'm assistant coach at Rutgers." And she's like, "Well, he's still going to your school." And sure enough, he wound up going to that school. And guess what? In 1976, they were in the Final Four when Phil Sellers averaged like 20 points and 9 rebounds a game. Okay. And, I thought that was a great story. It has nothing to do with today. It has nothing to do with Miami, but has everything to do with Jim, Jimmy, Larry, Coach L, because these are the bonds he forms with people. These are the bonds he forms with his players. He's not just a coach who yells at you. He's personable. He's got amazing stories. No matter the age difference of 5,000 years between him and his players, the players love him. They will do anything for him and vice versa. And that story epitomizes that Coach L bonds with everybody out there to the point that they'll share their personal stories with him. They'll tell him their problems. They'll tell him their funny stories. And he listens and he remembers. So be careful what stories you tell him, because I told him why I was wearing a Lacoste shirt to practice. And I have a feeling he'll be telling everyone that story now. So be careful what you tell him.
I like the story. You and I actually asked them about his whistle, and I wrote about this in my column this morning, and how he grew up in the Bronx, and it was kind of rough in the Bronx. It was not the greatest neighborhood in the world back then, and his father created a system for him to alert his mom when he was home, so she could unbolt all the doors and let him very quickly get inside before she bolted him back again. And it was the whistle. And his dad taught him how to whistle so loudly so that his mom would hear him, through the doors and windows and stuff. And I thought that
let me tell you, it's a loud whistle. It's almost like you have the whistle in your mouth, and even louder.
Unbelievable. It is unbelievable.
And then the funny thing is, for some reason, after he tells this whole story, there's like 4 or 5 of us at that point that were listening to him. In the middle of his practice, no less. One of the TV guys decides to share his own story about whistling. He's like, "Yeah, when my dad wanted food from my mom, he'd whistle like this. And it was like some stupid like whistle. You couldn't even hear it compared to Coach L." And so the guy's like, "Yeah." And so I would imitate the whistle. So my mom would come running to my dad to see what he wanted. It was just me messing with him, And Coach L just turned and walked away. He didn't like that story.
Yeah. Well,
as much as his own story, I guess.
So it started out as a way to get his mom's attention when it was time to let him in the house. And now it's his way of getting his team's attention when there's something happening in the game that he knows that they need to be alerted to. And I think we're going to hear the whistle a lot in tonight's game, because Miami has one ticket to beating this team. They have to protect the basketball, and they have to get back on defense, and they have to make Houston run half-court offense, okay? I've watched a lot of tape of this team this week to get ready for this trip coming here. And the one thing that stood out to me is this Houston team is at its best when they are able to get into the passing lanes, get turnovers, and use their athleticism to get up the floor. If you could keep them from doing that, and you can make them run half-court sets that you can dig in yourself and defend, I think if Miami can do that, they got a chance to win this game tonight, Matt, because I believe they are a better pure offensive team than Houston. But if they let them play their game and get all those turnovers that they're used to getting and really get their defense controlling the game, I mean, it'll be similar to the loss against Kansas last year when Miami got to the Elite Eight. So just to me, a very intriguing game. And as I was coming to the T-Mobile Center this morning to do this show, it reminded me of last year. Similar setting. You know, you look around that this is a magnificent arena for a city that doesn't have an NBA team. They don't have a hockey team. They built this magnificent 18,000 seat facility that's good enough for them to lure the NCAA tournament Sweet 16. But, you know, very similar. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere here. No question about it. And the moment against Kansas was too big for this program, for this team. They had a great game plan. They got a 6-point lead at halftime. And I think they went into the locker room and they were like, oh my God, we are 30 minutes away from the Final Four. And just totally got blown out of the United Center in Chicago from that moment on. I mean, the second half was not even competitive. And to me, that was the moment being too big. I don't think the moment tonight is going to be too big. I think that the guys that were in the tournament last year, they're experienced now. They have a whole nother year of seasoning. The guys that are doing this for the first time, Nigel Pack is as confident as they get. He's now had a couple NCAA tournament games to just get a feel for the atmosphere. Norchad Omier is just a beast. I mean, I can't imagine him being intimidated by anything. So I think that they will be in a better mental place for this game tonight than maybe they were, even though they were leading Kansas at halftime in that Elite Eight game last year. So to me, it's about execution, man. It's like Houston is absolutely incredible on defense. I pulled some stats here. They lead the nation in field goal percentage defense. Teams are only shooting 36% against these guys. That's pretty good. They lead the nation in scoring margin with an average scoring margin of 18.3 points. So they're just blowing it. They've been blowing everybody out all year long. They're tied for the national lead in winning percentage. They rank second in the country in scoring defense. 56.6 points is all they typically allow. Okay, Miami's going to have to get in the 60s to have a chance to win this game. There's no doubt about it. And the thing that they do really well, which could give Miami problems, is they are great at defending the three-point line. Teams only shot 27.4% from three against the Houston defense. So they're going to pose problems, okay? But the key is Miami's got to do a great job moving the ball. They have to avoid turnovers. They must protect the ball at all costs, even if it means a couple empty possessions here and there. You can live with empty possessions much more so against this team than steals and having them racehorsing up the court in the other direction. Miami must be able to get back on defense and must be able to set its defense and make Houston, like I said, execute half-court sets. That is critical to this being a competitive game from start to finish. They have a plus 7.4 rebounding margin, a team that is exceptionally good on the boards. Miami is going to need to give Norchad Omier help, okay? Isaiah Wong, Wooga Poplar in particular, they are going to have to impact the game as rebounders. Now, Isaiah Wong had 8 rebounds in the game the other day against Indiana. They are going to need at least that from him, I think, in tonight's game. So, the bottom line is that Houston is such a good team and so athletic that you do not have any margin for error against them. And that's the backdrop for this game tonight. But I think Jim Larrañaga has this team in a good place. I think he's very good at preparing for games like this and coming up with a game plan that can be effective. And I'm expecting a really good game tonight. Your thoughts?
I mean, hopefully people fast forwarded through you naming all those stats, because if Miami was in the AAC, they would be top 5 in the country in defense. They would average 5 to 10 more points a game. Miami is in the ACC. Houston lost to Memphis 3 games ago. I mean, this is not. People act like it's some unbeatable team because they're 33-3.
I don't. I just said they are beatable.
Yeah, but you're saying all these stats like, oh my God.
No.
You think everyone's beatable, so that goes out the window. The reason why this isn't a team that should be feared, is because of what I just said. But the reason why this team is a number 1 seed is in part because they don't lose games because they're in an easy conference. The only 2 real teams they played that were ranked this year were Virginia, which wasn't that good a team, and they beat them, and Alabama, which they lost to, okay? They had 3 losses. Another one was to Memphis. The other one was to whoever. Like, whatever. They haven't beat anybody that great. So the good news for Miami is Houston hasn't really seen a team like Miami. They're playing all these AAC teams most of the time. The other factor here, to me, is that this team is basically where it is right now as a number 1 seed based on, in part, last year where they had a nice run and they had another good season and they had a lot of guys back. The key to the game to me, like you could name, Norchad Omier, whatever. The key to me is Marcus Sasser, because if they don't find a way to sort of negate his ability to distribute, his ability to shoot threes, he's the guy that makes his whole offense go. And if they don't have a way to sort of slow him down, make him uncomfortable, this is just going to be a scoring fest. And Houston's defense, I'm not saying Houston's defense is bad. Houston's defense is really good. They would be probably not as good as Virginia's defense in the ACC, but they'd probably be the 2nd best defense in the ACC, in my opinion. And I think that let's revisit that after tomorrow night's game. I'm guessing they're better than Virginia. Yeah, you've got a better sense.
And I know they're better than Drake. What Drake put, Drake gave Miami fits last week, and I know they're better than Drake.
Of course. Are you kidding? Did I make it sound like they're not better than Drake? No. Are you kidding?
But I think they're probably better than Virginia
on defense. I'm talking about on defense.
I know. Okay. I heard.
Listen. You can talk about it however you want. To me, Houston's similar to Miami. Like Larrañaga said, Houston is a mirror image of Miami, just a little thicker. And, it's funny because Larrañaga's like, when we were talking to him, he's like, you got to stop the big guys. You can't, they have these 2 big guys inside. That's what he kept talking about, which obviously he doesn't want us to know how, I'm sure they're focusing on what is probably one of the best, if not the best, backcourts in the nation. It was funny to me when someone says, what's the challenge in Houston? And he starts talking about the 2 big guys. Like, everybody knows Houston survives on its guard play. They have the best backcourt in the nation. Miami's not that far behind, but right there. And, Miami should enter this game with a chip on its shoulder. I don't see why Miami cannot win this game. Like, if you throw out the seedings, Las Vegas has Houston as a 6.5 point spread or whatever it is, 7 point spread. I don't care because that's based a lot on hype.
No doubt.
And hype is not real.
They're number 1 seed. They should be a 7 point favorite.
Yeah, they should be based on one team dominating the AAC. And another team, honestly, what were we? We won the ACC, but we were right there with 4 other teams or 3 other teams. Like, we won. You could say we won the ACC, but the truth is there was 3 or 4 other teams that were right there with Miami at the end. I mean, whether you're tied with them or a game ahead, it's nice to say you won the regular season title. I'm not taking that away from them, but let's face it, those other teams weren't like it's Miami here and these other teams are all down here.
So just to sum it all up. This is an exciting day. We're not going to break down the women's game. They got the nation's leading scorer from Villanova that they have to deal with, and there's a story on the website today if you want to take a look at it.
And I will, because people were complaining, I will throw one tidbit of information out there. So we're talking to Destiny Harden. Interview's like wrapped up and done, and then Gary blurts out, "What about the F-bomb? What about the F-bomb, Destiny?" That was great. That was my Gary Ferman viral moment.
I wouldn't say it was quite like that, but
No, it wasn't like that, but that's how I
but
perceived it.
but I absolutely did my duty and at least ask
Yes,
about
you
it.
did.
I mean, it went viral all over the country, probably all over the world,
That was the
and
best.
she is now known for that, much more so than her excellent ability as a basketball player. So it was a question that had to be asked.
I mean, that was almost as good a question as when a reporter yesterday asked a player, "What's the difference between playing in pads and in shorts?" That's a true question.
Well,
I know what the reporter was looking for. They wanted an answer about how physical it is in pads. They were just looking for a quote. But the way the question comes out, you're like, what? When you just hear the question. But I understand the meaning behind it for sure.
Well, Destiny made it pretty clear she will not be dropping any more F-bombs. I mean, she's never been, I don't think she's ever been in a situation like that, being interviewed by ESPN courtside after a big last-second shot like that. Her emotions were running wild. And listen, I mean, everybody uses the F-bomb. Like, why? Maybe the problem is that it's considered taboo on national television because it's part of everybody's everyday language. So, but yeah, so she said she won't be using F-bombs in post-game interviews anymore. I'm sure ESPN is very relieved at that. I can't believe.
What's wrong with that? Why can't we say words anymore? I feel like my kids come home from college and I feel like I can't even speak because the language I used in the 1970s and 1980s, apparently, the word, there's a word now, it's unhoused. I can't even use the other word, apparently. It's a really bad word, but it's people who don't have a home to go to. The word now is unhoused. Like, I don't know these words until people tell me. Like, I didn't know that. So it's like my kids.
I've never heard that. I've never heard homeless referred to as unhoused.
You can't say that word anymore. It's unhoused. I'm serious.
I've never heard that.
Well, then
so
you're
really. If your kids are using that, they're living in a world different than the world I'm living in.
No, this is the way the world is now, and that's why I'm saying say the F-bomb because there's way worse words than the F-bomb out there apparently now. The F word used to be the worst word. Your kids always think the F word is fart when they're little kids, right? But supposedly it's like the worst word in the world. Now there's like 100 way worse words than that. So go ahead and say that word. That word's like not even on the spectrum anymore for bad words. It's just like a common adjective or verb depending how you use it. That's it.
All right. So, we're not going to break down the women's game, but we do have a story on the website today for anybody who's interested in that. And it's going to be an exciting day watching that game in the afternoon. And then obviously, the Miami-Houston game at night. All right, let's shift gears, Matt, and talk a little bit about football. Spring practice continued yesterday, and another day out on Green Tree. And I was in the air flying to Kansas City, so this one's going to be all up to you. What did you see out on the practice field yesterday?
So it was the first day in full pads, and you never know what you're going to get when you have two new coordinators and a whole new system and how they're going to run practice because Mario Cristobal is not the guy who draws up the practice for the offense and the practice for the defense. So I actually prefer the practices in shorts and tank tops because the beginning of those practices, they line up in depth chart order on offense. So you clearly see first team, everything, second team, everything, third team, everything.
You're giving the secrets away.
Everyone knows that. So which is great. But it doesn't matter.
I know, but if Mario's watching this show,
Mario has no idea they line up in first team, second team. No,
he'll change it up and he'll change the whole thing up to throw you off.
Right. I hope he does. Yeah. I hope he does. That'd be fantastic. Actually, I would love that. If he basically builds this team to create disinformation for Matt Shodell, I don't think it could be any worse than what we've seen in the last 15, 20 years. Any change is good change at this point. I'll take it. But anyway, yesterday we get out there, full pads, and there's no depth charts that anyone could say, okay, this guy lined up first in this drill, this guy lined up first in that drill. We all know the guys who are pretty much the first teamers at this point. They're going to scrimmage for half a practice tomorrow, and that'll be counted as the first scrimmage. It's a coach's clinic, and a nice reporter was kind enough to ask Mario, sir, could we please watch a few minutes of practice on Saturday? And Mario said, hell no! You get no practice, no lunch, no dinner, go to your room. And the reporter said, okay, and went home to her room and had no lunch or no dinner. So, we're going to see if we could get some information afterwards. But to me, you can get the information from the scrimmage, whatever. The coaches go back after that. They look at the film. What's most important to me is when we go back out there the following Tuesday, which we will be allowed out there, to see what changes there are, because the coaches off of these scrimmages, that's when the depth chart moves. When you see a guy just flying around making plays with pads on in a scrimmage, that's when you say, okay, we're promoting this guy. Let's see how he does with the first team this week in practice. Those are the things I want to see. Like, I don't care if, it's nice to say that Henry Parrish ran for 82 yards and 3 touchdowns, but like, until you see some of these guys really doing it in games, I mean game-like situations, you just don't know what you have. So I'm more excited about next Tuesday, honestly, than Saturday. But that's just me because I'm weird.
So did anything jump out to you at practice?
So what jumped out to me? At practice? Well, Azubi was there. Steven was there. And I think that we should come up with a whistle when we want to beckon them. Just like Jim Leonard, like we'll go like.
I can't do it. I was trying.
And they run to us and we tell them what we want, because they're the young guys. Those 2 young guys, they should be getting us things, right? We shouldn't have to yell across the field. Just whistle and they come to us. I think that's what we should do. But so they were both out there, which was nice, helping out. Stephen was dealing with recruiting. Azubi was helping with the filming the practice and all that stuff, and they both did great jobs. So I think that from what I saw, it was all individual drills. The only disturbing thing, because I always focus on the negative, God forbid everybody, was Henry Parrish and Don Chaney both dropped like easy passes. Which one of those 2, by the way, do you think actually did push-ups after they dropped the passes? Because only one of them did.
Don Chaney.
Yeah, good for you. Now, that was the negative. Now the positive, and I love this. I've never seen this ever covering the team for the last 432 years. I've never seen this. And it's brilliant. It's what every coach should do, okay? Shannon Awesome. He's even more awesome now. Shannon More Awesome, I'm going to call him, because of what he did. So they haven't done this before, Gary, but they had the normal throwing drills, right? So it's just the quarterback, the net, and then sometimes the quarterback and one of the assistants is, one of the low-level assistants, whatever, backroom guys, like running routes for each quarterback. There's no receivers involved, no tight ends, nothing like that. Pure passing drills. So what Shannon Awesome was doing was he was standing right in the passing lane of the quarterback, like right in his face. And the net's maybe 10 yards away. And as the quarterback's throwing, Shannon's just ducking his head a little bit. And the quarterback's got to sort of throw it over Shannon Awesome without being able to follow through, by the way, because he's going to land on Shannon Awesome's back. And that's like somehow mimicking real games, right? Because there's going to be times when there's a guy in your face, you got to get the ball out with a guy coming bearing down on you. And those situations, every year we've seen these drills, the quarterback stands back there calmly, nobody even near him, and just throws it to the net, throws it in the net, accuracy drills. Now it's accuracy drills with an obstacle, okay? And then there was another drill where Shannon Awesome was doing the same thing, but then there's another drill where he would sort of duck into them, and they had to sort of go around him and throw on the run as he's like almost chasing them, I mean, I just love that aspect of it, because there's so many just go through the motions type practices, and to see a coach get that involved and care that much. And Kevin Beard also was very, very vocal yesterday. I haven't seen him that vocal at all. I think he knows a scrimmage is coming up and he's got some work to do, because I mean, he was going in on the little details and actually being fairly loud, which for those of you that know Kevin Beard, he's a pretty mellow dude, which was also good to see. So, I was mainly on the offensive side. Azubi was on the defensive side. So that's what I saw on the offensive side. And I like that a lot.
All right. So spring practice will continue tomorrow with the first scrimmage of the spring. And we'll gather as much info as we can on that. But first, there's business to take care of on the basketball court. And I encourage everybody, get excited about these 2 games today. They both should be really, really, really interesting sporting events in extremely lively atmospheres. And it's a special time for the Miami basketball program. And even if you're a football purist and football is, your number one sport, like most Canes fans, give yourself a day to enjoy what this basketball program is accomplishing, because it legitimately is now one of the top 15 basketball programs in the country without question. now that this FBI thing is behind them and they don't have to get derailed by that investigation, Jim Larinaga's got this thing rolling, and they're going to be good again next year too. So I mean, there's a chance, Matt, that everybody but Jordan Miller could come back on this team next year.
You're already talking about next year like they lost. What's wrong with you? You don't.
No, I'm just saying. I'm talking about next year. They're going to be very good. I don't.
You just jinxed them. Congratulations.
I think there'll be a couple guys that might go in the portal. There will be some change. Just guys looking for better opportunities that are backups, right? Right now that want to be starters somewhere. I could see like a Harlan Beverly and a Bensley Joseph, for example, going into the portal. Okay, that's not out of the question. We don't know yet what Isaiah Wong is going to do. He has a year of eligibility left. He could come back. I'm sure he could command a lot of NIL dollars if he would come back, probably more than he would make in Europe, which is probably what he's looking at, Europe or G League. And I'm not sure he could even play in G League. His shooting motion is not going to translate very well to the pro game. He's kind of got that. He kind of like leans into it, shoots it low. It's not going to work. It's not going to probably work at the pro level. So I think he would be very wise to take those John Ruiz dollars and come back next year. I think he could make more money through NIL. And there's other collectives too, by the way, obviously, that are involved with football that are not yet involved with basketball. And I think it's going to be time for the NIL community to get behind basketball too. I mean, this is a program that's achieving a lot right now. So it's going to be interesting once the season is over. But first, obviously, they are looking to continue this run tonight against Houston. And I think it's going to be a captivating game. I really do. I feel strongly that they are going to come out with a good game plan. They know they have to protect the basketball. And there's no secrets there. Like, they know this team gets in the passing lanes. And I think they'll be prepared to do that, in several different ways. So we'll see what happens. All right, if you like the show, you like our channel.
Hold on a second. People want to know if you're going to get Kansas City barbecue while you're there. What's the plan?
Oh, that's been there, done that, man. That was last night. Unbelievable.
Oh,
Jack Stacks, man. Jack Stacks. It was amazing. In fact, thank you to the people on the message boards that gave their menu suggestions. Those burnt ends were unreal. This came as advertised, and really all the food was really, really good. Anyway, so please do not interrupt me again.
Are you low and slow or high and hot? Which one are you? You don't know.
I don't know. Probably.
You seem slow. I don't know about low.
Probably pretty slow. Yeah, probably
you're
pretty
slow.
slow.
You're just slow. Okay.
All right. Will you let me talk to the people, please?
Low and slow means you're going to roast it closer to the flame, but for longer, right? High. If you put the ribs up high, you put the heat up higher.
And my barbecue exposure before this trip was Shorty's barbecue on Dixie Highway by Dadeland.
Do you want to hear something? Do you know that I actually went to a slaughterhouse with a Cuban friend of mine, and we did the whole roast the pig in the pit thing. And when I tell you, I have never smelled death before. Like, you walk up to this facility and you know what death smells like. Like, I've never smelled anything like it in my life. Like, you just know it's death. And I'm not an animals rights guy, but I felt bad for the pigs, man. Like, they have them in this pen, and like, you pick the pig. My friend picks the pig that he wants out of the pen, and they like prod it into this little area. And the next thing you know, you're back outside, and like, they give you this carcass with its organs in a plastic clear bag. Like, why are the organs in a clear bag? I don't want to see them. Are they trying to prove that it's actually organs in there and not like just some bricks, like fake organs? I don't understand it. And my friend says something like the brain's the best part or something. I'm like, you probably have a lot of, I don't know, some sort of diseases from eating a pig brain. And he's like, well, the ears are the best part. I'm like, I'm just here for the experience. I'm never doing the, I'll stick with my bagels and Nova and, a little bit of arugula on the side, and I'm good, man. I don't need the whole death pig thing. But I did actually go back with him. I don't know why. And we actually did a sheep. We did a sheep for my baseball team because the kids all wanted a roast sheep. And I tried to turn one of the horns into a shofar, but it just wound up rotting on the roof.
you took your kids' baseball team to the
No.
slaughterhouse
I went back to the slaughterhouse and
get them a
got
sheep.
a sheep to bring to the children. But that one we didn't cook in a pit. That one, how did we cook that? I think we cooked that just on a barbecue or something, or a bunch of coals or something. I don't know. But yeah,
I ate goat once.
Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't a sheep. It was a goat. You're right. It was a goat.
Yeah, I ate goat once. There's a restaurant in Chicago called Girl and the Goat, and I went there and I ate goat. It was amazing.
Honestly, I didn't love the pig. I didn't love the sheep, but the pig, like they cut it open, they put all these herbs in it and this green sauce, and they let it sit like overnight as a marinade, and they stick it in this pit, and you cook it for like 8 hours, and it's like everyone that lives within 5 miles smells it and comes over and says, "Oh yeah, that's a pig in the pit," and they drink beer and leave. It's a weird thing. Like I don't know. I guess I have a different culture than to throw the pig in the pit after letting it sit around for a day. That's not really for me, but I'm sure a lot of people out there are that's their thing. And I don't mean to say it's not great. I'm sure it's amazing, but I'm not doing it again.
It's it's
I'll
amazing.
stick with stone crabs.
It's amazing the stuff that goes on with animals, whether they're stone crabs or goats. I got a buddy that owns racehorses now, and he was breeding. He had a female horse that couldn't run anymore, and he decided to breed this horse and sent her up to the breeding farm, and he got a video of the whole breeding being done. The horses, I'm not gonna, I mean, it was literally, it was rape and it was porn without question. I mean, I never really seen that before. And he sent me this video. I was like, holy cow, man. I was like, but anyway, enough with the crazy animal stories.
I mean, yeah, I'm done with that.
All right. Let me talk to the people now. If you're mentally deranged and you like this show and you like our channel, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube to grow our audience. And if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please, please, please become one. Your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every day. If it were not for your subscriptions, I would not be sitting in Kansas City, Missouri right now. Trust me, covering the Miami Hurricanes in the Sweet 16. I'm sure hopefully the game goes well and it'll be a very fond memory. Yeah. But
and I'll just a final parting thought. Like, if you thought two horses doing it was porn, you may want to get a different subscription to a different service than what you already have.
This was porn. No, this was porn.
Just a suggestion.
It was like unbelievable. I'm not going to elaborate any further because this is a G-rated show. But like, it was insane.
All right, I just wanted the conversation to end. The conversation's over. Yeah.
No,
have a great day, everybody. Go Canes!
But I'll just tell you, it was absolutely insane. All right, for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you so much for joining us once again, and have a great day, everybody.